Hello, 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 and welcome to Growing Your Mindset with Adam Diaz and Justin Hoke. It is Monday, Motivation Monday. And for motivation today, we're going to be talking about Freaky Friday. Basically, Freaky Friday type movies and lessons that we can learn mindset wise through these movies. Adam, you and your kids just watched one yesterday, so
Yeah. Good morning, Justin. Good morning, everybody. So thankful to be here this morning. Yes, it is Monday, but we're going to be talking about Freaky Friday, or like Justin said, these kind of movies. I watched. Justin said this is what we're going to talk about today, and so this weekend I plan to watch a movie with the kids, and we watched the 2003 Freaky Friday with Jamie Lee Curtis, and the kids had never seen it, and it's been ages since I had, and they loved it. I mean, each of them had their own characters that they, kind of resonated with, and they were jumping up and down. It was a madhouse in our house this weekend when we were watching it, but it was very interesting. Very interesting to refresh myself on that, and what powerful mindset lessons.
yeah, incredible lessons in mindset as far as, I mean, right off the bat, you get the idea of gratitude, forgiveness. Uh, there's a bunch of things that you can get there, but I want to reminisce a little bit,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just if you got a favorite one of these types of movies, put it in the comments, because I can just they're flooding my memory banks, right? Like, um, I can remember the the Kirk Cameron, Dudley Moore, like father, like son. That was a good one. That was back in the, I think that was
Back
probably in
in
the
the 80s.
90s, or maybe even, yeah, maybe even as far back as the 80s. Even before that was the original Freaky Friday with Jodie Foster. And the concept of these movies is, for anybody watching who just doesn't know the concept of these types of movies, it's a body swap, right? So basically, for whatever reason, um, well, like kind of like Tom Hanks is Big, right? Yeah, I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
that movie or not,
Yeah.
but he wishes that he was big. Well, that classifies it as sort of a Freaky Friday type movie, although he doesn't switch with, he's a kid who switches with his future self,
Right. So
where
a
in
lot of
the
perspective changes there for him.
right. So, I mean, they're taking that concept. There was Hot Chick with what was it? What's his name? Schneider, Rob Schneider.
Okay. Yeah,
That
yeah,
one
yeah,
was hilarious. He's I don't know, I don't remember exactly how they did that. I mean, even the Chucky movies are technically a Freaky Friday.
Oh, too
Um,
freaky.
really Freaky Friday
Yeah, yeah,
type movie scenario. 13 Again, or with Garofalo and man, these movies are old, so it's kind of hard to remember the actors and actresses. They're not necessarily as vanguard as they once were, but there's, I think we mentioned the Zac Efron one in our pre-show talk, and Matthew Perry. So yeah,
So
there's a ton
would
of.
would Face Off classify as a body swap, or is that just a face swap?
Oh, interesting. You know, um, I think in all of the others, uh, the protagonist is experiencing life as the opposite person. So technically yes, and technically
Yeah,
no. So
yeah,
it's, yeah, kind of.
yeah. I think in some senses for sure, because they're they're pretending to be the other person as well. So yeah,
Yeah, and Back to the Future,
so many of them.
Julie mentioned, I don't think that one would qualify in the sense that, to the best of my recollection, there was no soul swapping, no body changing. Well, I mean, unless you count future and past Biff versions, but yeah, even then, it was still, he was who he was in the time that he was. So I think that one doesn't count. But as far as mindset principles, my thought was, you know, was one, there's a message behind these movies. One, to basically explore the idea of, control, yeah, being trying to figure out life if all the scenarios in your life change all of a sudden. You find yourself in a situation where you have, the script has been flipped. In some of these, it's really fun, the way that they sort of try to work together, where the child is now, is
They
now
got to coach each other.
that's right. I think there was even one with, Fred Savage and Judge Reinhold, where they switched. And that's the one that was in my memory. I can't even remember the title of that one. But what was so clever and fun about that one is that Fred Savage was so young, that uh, to be the person he had to play the adult role, while Judge Reinhold got to play, the immature little kid. Although the immature little kid's trapped in the adult body,
Yeah.
while the adult is in the young body. And there's just the fun dynamic there of experiencing life in a different way. And then, of course, you've got, at the end of each of these movies, is that lesson that, aren't you grateful for who you are?
Yeah.
Um, s-
Yeah, man, I love this idea, when we look at it, because in the beginning of these stories, there's usually a lot of, um, there's a lack of empathy, right? There's a lack of understanding. The characters are usually butting heads, or they think the other one has it better, or they think they have the other person all figured out, right? And this is what kind of stems the whole transformation, the swap. And then they get this rude awakening, like, wow, like this was not what I was expecting it to be. And literally walking in somebody's shoes. We have this saying, and this is a really interesting thought, because a lot of times, we can have empathy, but if we go through like an exercise like this, or if we actually had something happen like this, in a fictitious world, or we could swap with somebody, and what would that be like? And just to like kind of think about that is can bring on so many different thoughts.
yeah, Brian is asking about the John Malkovich one. I don't remember that one, but maybe it's just because I'm not. I've seen a ton of his movies, but can't think of one, a
Yeah.
body swap one.
Yeah, that one was, I've seen that one a long time ago, but yeah, I think that was technically a body swap one. They all turned into John Malkovich, like with the characters that were in the movie.
Oh, is that Being John
Yeah,
Malkovich movie?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, interesting. So, okay, that one would definitely count. I don't recognize it, but um, in the sense that I haven't actually. I'm familiar with the movie, but it's one that, I've never made it more than a couple minutes into. And of course, the idea of the mindset principles that are at play here are things that we want to talk to motivation wise. Uh, I mean, can you imagine? Um, that's kind of what's going on here, right? Adam normally plans out the show. He normally outlines the show, and so we haven't body swapped, but we've swapped roles. And so I thought it'd be cool to talk about something like this. Avatar, kind of.
in a
Uh,
sense, he's,
yeah,
he resonates with the people. He understands what's going on with them by being in part of their tribe and whatnot. So I'd
I
say,
do. I do think that's technically what they're doing with the Sigourney Weaver character in the
yeah,
second movie, because, to create a role. Well, I don't know if it was to create a role or if it was part of the storyline naturally, and it's a spoiler if you haven't seen the second movie yet. Um, there is a character, the Sigourney Weaver character somehow lives again, which is sort of an interesting paradigm, or at least she voice acts, or yeah, it's an interesting dynamic how they worked it out, because it's definitely a different actress, but it's her voice.
hmm. But yeah, on this idea of swapping bodies, and I think when we do this, it it stems from this idea of I don't know, a lack of appreciation for the other person. Like we're not seeing, them for who they are, and we're kind of just looking at the faults, kind of the gap thinking, right? And especially in Freaky Friday, the kid, it was like a typical teen, typical overworked mom, and like they were just butting heads all the time on everything. And there was just idea of, she was just lazy, she was just this, and the mom was just overbearing. And when, it's the other person's life seems so easy and they have it like so good. And I think this is a very common thing for us to have that grass is greener mentality. And when we see other people's lives, we can only look at the surface of it. And so from the surface, we just fill in the gaps, and we fill it in with our own imagination. And so those things usually aren't accurate, but it's usually in a positive way. Oh, they must have it so good, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's such a great principle for us to focus on, especially for those of us who are entrepreneurs, right? Because we often are motivated and spurred on by the stories of others and the success of others, but we very rarely see the hard work that it took to get there. And so it can be easy for us to look at these people, to look at a Pace Morby or to look at a Grant Cardone and just think, oh, okay, they rolled out of bed millionaires. They rolled out of bed successful. They rolled out and we forget that there was a journey, a path similar to ours, that where hard work was involved and steadfastness, resilience.
We always say, "Oh, it must be nice," right? Must be nice being Pace. We see
Right.
these highlights of his reels and these kind of things. Whoever it is, and I think social media really exasperates this even more, to the sense of, everything is just curated and made perfect, so it looks all nice for the camera. And then we really suffer from that grass is greener syndrome. And I think these movies like this really help us to start that thought process, because all of us can resonate at some point with each of the characters in these movies. And especially the one that we watched this weekend, because it's fresh in my mind. But I love how, they think they have each other figured out. They just got it. They understand the other person completely, and they're totally wrong.
Oh, and another series that would work, although I'm not sure that it would have in the first film, the Robin Williams one, but in the later films, the Jumanji movies, they were sort of body swap
Mm.
movies.
Yeah, 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 because they're
And
teens and they go into they're in different bodies. Kevin Hart's
right.
the cheerleader, right?
Well, I think, yeah,
Is
that's
that what it was?
well, in the second movie,
Oh, it's a Jack
of the
Black. Him
modern
and Jack Black, yeah.
of the modern ones, they switch around a lot, but in the
Yeah,
first one, I
so
think they only switched around a few times.
yeah, yeah, so,
Uh,
yeah, that would totally be one there. I forgot about that one. But, it's interesting because we get so used to our single-minded perspective. And Ben Hardy talks a lot about this in some of his later in his more recent books, as far as our perspectives. We think that that is how the world is, like just how we see it, our worldview. We think that's how the world is, but really it is a one single narrow-minded view of many views that is trying to interpret the same facts, the same truth. And so when we realize that our perspective isn't the only perspective, we can have more empathy. Like we can really think of how other people are thinking, why they do the things they do, what motivates them, what inspires them. And without that, like it gets lost. We are just so focused on ourselves, we don't think there's any other way. And that's how we get this, all this conflict, this closed-minded thinking, because it's like my way or the highway. And it's far from what the truth of the reality is.
right. Well, and oftentimes, life is a matter of just different perspectives and seeing things from someone else's perspective or changing your point of view.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. I don't want to deny the necessarily the existence of you know there are cringy people out there. So not every perspective is a good perspective, but
Right.
in general speaking, most people are their perspective is reasonable, it's rational, it's something that
Yeah.
you know that they've got good reasons to support or fight for the positions that they're holding on to, that they hold dear. And just as much as you do, if your position is different. And some of the best ways of being able to communicate and be able to move forward with people is to be able to see things from their point of view, and not just see things from their point of view, but to be able to empathize and um, and listen empathetically, to be able to pick up that new perspective. And it can be kind of um, it can be very very helpful in discovering truth and examining our own motivations. For a lot of people, I wonder, I don't know if it's true, but I wonder if there if there aren't. At least that's a perception that I have, and maybe others do as well. But like in politics and religion and in other areas, it seems like people are kind of hold to their positions, not because of real principles or anything else, but because they've attached an emotion to it, like rooting for a football team or a baseball team. I mean, that's a simplistic position,
Yeah.
and I get that, and people are way more complicated than that, but it does feel like that sometimes. And I think that being able to stop and go, okay, are there real, can I put my brain in their head and try to figure out, what are the real reasons? Because it's very unlikely that most people are truly um, just not thinking about the choices that they're making. I mean, there's a passionate emotional reason that they're supporting the view that they're supporting. Is there possibly truth to it? Could I see it from a different perspective?
Yeah, and this really highlights that habit we talked about last week as far as seeking first to understand and then be understood. Because when we're able to, because so many times when we're looking at the actions of others at the surface level, it's like, how could they do that? And that, it would sometimes my kids or I see people out in the, just people that I know and I hear about things they do. And it just is beyond me. I can't understand why they would make the decisions they make until I dig a little deeper, especially for my kids, because that's one that I can really find and dig for the motivation and find out what happens and things a lot easier than other people. But um, sometimes I'll have these instances where the kids will do something and I think it's one thing and then it's another until I start digging deeper and like making sure that we understand what's happening and putting ourselves in the positions of others. Like then, that frustration or that, that fury that we may have over things. And I think this is like in the political scene, why there's so much opposition all the time, because the other side always thinks they're right. And
Right.
instead of like just trying to think, okay, well, let's think this through a little bit. Let's see why they're. And the great thing is, I don't have to agree with the other side to understand where they're coming from. And
Sure.
so, like, I love these movies because it helps clarify so many things that we don't even understand that people are going through. And it's like when we start thinking of like all the complexities like, you're talking about, all these complexities and all the weights and pressures and different nuances that people are dealing with, then we have more compassion. And I think this is a part of empathy, because when we start understanding people, then we're less judgmental, and then we're more compassionate, we're more patient. And this is where we want to be. We have to make sure that we are well rounded when we are dealing with making decisions and dealing with people, navigating relationships. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to put ourselves in other people's shoes so that we can really understand where they're coming from, whether we agree with it or not.
It'd be funny now that we have the deep fake technology that we have with AI. Somebody made um, a Trump Biden swap Freaky Friday movie. That would be funny. Give it'd be interesting to see what perspectives Trump would gain from walking a mile in Biden's shoes, and what perspectives Biden would gain from walking a mile in Trump's shoes. But
That would be interesting.
you could have a lot of fun with a concept
Yeah,
like that. But
yeah, for sure.
I mean, because you would be forced to see things from another perspective. You'd be forced to, you know, um, sort of relive, um, you know. Julie's comment is hilarious, but that sort of brought up the idea that there's another genre of movies that sort of fit this sort of Christmas Carol, Family Guy,
Yeah.
not Family Guy the cartoon,
A
but
Family Man, right?
Family Man. That's
Yeah.
right. That Nicolas Cage one. I really enjoyed that one where he gets to have a glimpse of
The
what life
alternate
would be
reality.
like if he would have married his college
Yeah,
sweetheart, if they would have settled down, moved out of the city, raised kids, and if they would have had a normal family life rather than the life that he had. And um, from his perspective at the beginning of that movie, um, you know, even when he first changes, you can tell that he's absolutely disgusted by this man. This man is not a high performer. This man is not a high achiever. He is not excellent. He's not the CEO of anything. He's the manager of a tire shop,
yeah,
and he can't even afford to buy a suit. I mean, he's just repulsed by this person. But over time, he begins to see the value of
mhm,
this other man's life, and begins to really fall in love with the family
yeah,
that he has in this glimpse that he gets to experience. And and it teaches him those lessons that and it doesn't do it in such a way where it says, oh yeah, by the way, this life that you had before, it says you're a jerk, because it has him doing some jerk things. But you're not it's not necessarily that this life that you had before was bad, or this life that you're getting to see was bad. But you don't have a full picture.
yeah.
Wherever you're at, you don't have a full picture. You don't know. Um, you don't know what would have been best unless you've gotten a chance to see things from both perspectives.
And and I think this is why it's so important for us to have clarity on things and like meditate and visualize and like look, think these things through, right? Because it's so powerful for us to gain greater perspective on other perspectives, right? Not like you said, not all perspectives are created equal, but just being aware that they're out there and that there are other perspectives than our own, because when we're able to like really start considering other people, like considering other, like even other alternate versions of ourselves, right? Because we can do that with ourselves. And I think this is what ultimately transforms these people. At the end, they come out better than they were, right? Why? Because they have greater empathy for the other people in their lives, and so they are appreciating these things more, and it all like boils down to gratitude at the very end of it. Because in the beginning, they're not thankful for each other. Like they are just taking each other for granted completely. And then by the end of the movie, like they really see all the problems and all the struggles and all the things that they're really good at, that they really excel in, that you overlooked because the gap was overshadowing the gain. And when they see these things, like they have love for each other, and it's just such a greater appreciation, and it's full of gratitude. I love those heartwarming movies like that.
Well, and I think that the dynamic with a parent and a child in those ones is really genius, in the sense that that's that's such an interesting dynamic. I mean, you go through these ebbs and flows. I mean, for at least the way that thankfully I haven't had to experience it. My kids still hug me. They're not embarrassed by me hanging around. Maybe it's because I'm a cool dad. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah. Or maybe it's just that it's still coming. But there tends to be this inability to understand each other's perspectives, and I'll admit that that's quite true, right? Like we've
Mhm.
talked about it here on the show in the past. One of the ways that we can tend to be overcritical of our children because we're expecting so much from them. We're expecting such great things, and yet they'll have days where they really impress us, and then they'll have days where the immaturity comes back, and it's like, man, I thought you
I
were
thought we were past
were
this.
different, or they complain about doing a chore, or whatever it is. um and and one of the ways that, or one of the things that we've been talking about in past shows, is that ability to change our perspective with our kids, and not necessarily cast them in a role in our heads where we're expecting them to be immature. We're expecting them to make foolish decisions. We're expecting them to be dishonest or self-serving or whatever it is um, that we do. But taking that step back and giving them an opportunity to excel by assuming, okay, by putting them by looking at the gains that they've made rather than focusing on the gap. Yeah, they're not the 25-year-old version of themselves who has completed college, who has accomplished a lot of their goals, who is finally starting to show their own personality yet. They're not, but they're becoming that person. And if we look at them and talk to them as if they were constantly the 7-year-old who never gets anything right, who still occasionally wets the bed, or makes this or that mistake, or whatever, then maybe it's that we're trying to put the brakes on from them growing up a little bit, but eh, we're also damaging the relationship that we have between each other, because we're not, where there should be these really good emotions of love and building up. There's this sort of this conflict there that really doesn't need to be there if we just imagine forward to their future self. And I think I mentioned this. One of the things I really appreciated about the Flash series on the CW was the time travel element, where Barry and I think it's Agnes. Maybe I'm wrong. Barry and his wife, they get to see their children as adults, and they build a friendship relationship with them as adults. And and so the kids aren't even born yet in the timeline of the series. In fact, I think they're wrapping that up, or they did wrap that up this season. I don't know. No spoilers because I haven't seen it. But um, the fact that I was thinking about this, if I focused on the 25-year-old successful version of my son, uh, eh, then I'm going to treat him different than if I'm constantly looking at all of the mistakes that he makes and all of and in fact, um, if I am not willing to see the gains, if I'm not willing to, I could be the catalyst for him going, you know what, I'm just a screw up. I'm just a failure. I'm never going to succeed. I'm never going to be that 25-year-old version of myself who is starting to gain success and build a future for myself. I'm never going to be, that adolescent that becomes an adult. Instead, maybe I'll go off into drugs, or I'll go off into, I'm not saying that we can necessarily prevent that from happening in our children's lives, but I think that if we're expecting something better and we treat them in a way that celebrates the gains rather than constantly keeps them trapped in the gap, that we'd be surprised with what we see.
Certainly. And, I really like where you took this because, a lot of times this is what this ultimately boils down to, this gap versus game thinking. And when we have a greater appreciation for the people in our lives, like one of the things that helps me get out of the gap fast is when I am able to, when I start feeling frustrated at my kids or whoever it is, I start thinking of their progress. I look at all the things that they're doing, look at where they were even a year ago, and when we start doing those things, like these movies, I think they're warnings for us, they're lessons for us that we don't have to wait until like something terrible happens before we like get slapped into reality. Like we can put ourselves in our children's shoes, in our partner's shoes, in our client's shoes, whoever it is, to have greater empathy, to have greater mindset and perspective in our dealings with people and our dealings with just how we navigate in this world. And these movies are really a good testament, a reminder for that, that we can take the time now, right? We don't have to wait until we get swapped with somebody's body and have this crazy thing happen, or to fantasize about this, but we can like really take this as a lesson. Like, don't take your people that you love for granted, right? When you're if you have people in your lives that you say you love, but you're always feeling like you hate them, like let's take a step back and let's put yourselves in their shoes and start counting all the things that are amazing about them and watch those things that are aggravating kind of fade into the background.
I love it. Well, we are 31 minutes after, so hopefully this has been of some value to you. If you enjoy the format that we've been trying out on Mondays, where we take and add to the Motivational Monday concept, this idea of grabbing something from popular culture like a movie and or a movie theme, and just bringing it into mindset. Please give us some feedback. And obviously, even if it's from the opposite, no, I don't like these
Yeah, let's do
episodes.
something else then.
Yeah, do something else.
Yeah,
That'd be helpful for us too. So these will help us.
for sure, for
Also,
sure.
please throughout the week, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. It really helps helps us to grow the channel. Also, leave some comments below. Tell us your favorite movies. Give us some suggestions for movies
For sure.
and topics that we can cover in the future, in the chat, not in the chat, in the comments on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And we're changing YouTube channels. Do you want to share a link to the new YouTube channel
Yes. Let's do that.
for us there?
Let's do that. And while I'm doing this, Brian had made mention in the chat here that he wasn't sure where we were going to go with this one, but you guys can really relate just about anything to mindset. And this is this isn't us. This is just testimony that everything goes back to mindset. Everything does, and it's so important that we are aware of these things and that we're constantly trying to improve them just 1% better. We don't have to make drastic changes because we're in it for the long haul. And mindset is a long-term play. And so when we're looking at these things, we're investing in ourselves. This is where we're going to see all that improvement. So let's jump into these affirmations, Justin.
Yeah, 100%. And I just, man, I want to add
What?
on to the end of that. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you thinking about, everything is mindset. We didn't even mention, the classic, The Christmas Carol. I mean, I mentioned it briefly, but and that's a perfect example too. I mean, how really it's a supernatural movie, but the whole point, or play, or book, or but the whole point is to appreciate life from a different perspective,
Yep.
and to be able to see things from a different point of view. So
What is that quote? The quote is, if everybody put their problems in a pile and searched around for someone else's, they'd pull theirs back out sheepishly or something like that.
Yeah, I love that. No, I've never heard that before, but
I butchered it, but it's something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a great concept. Oh, and just for Julie, you're right. Biden, Trump, that wouldn't be nearly as funny as maybe Trump and Hillary. I think that would be a much funnier movie. But I digress. Let's get into
Let's
these
get into 'em.
affirmations. So here we go.
Let's go.
You guys ready? Because I am committed to my growth.
I am committed to my growth.
I am loved, appreciated, blessed, and highly favored.
I am loved, appreciated, blessed, and highly favored.
Challenges are opportunities for me to improve.
Challenges are opportunities for me to improve.
Every day I am getting better and better.
Every day I am getting better and better.
I am my best investment.
I am my best investment.
Life happens for me. Everything is for my growth and benefit.
Life happens for me. Everything is for my growth and benefit.
I am an action taker.
I am an action taker.
I am committed to being the most positive person that I know.
I am committed to being the most positive person that I know.
I'm a fixer. I'm somebody's answer. When you get me, you get everything that I'm connected to.
I am a fixer. I am somebody's answer. When you get me, you get everything that I'm connected to.
I am healthy, wealthy, and wise.
I am healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Let's
Let's
go.
go.
All right, folks, have a crunchy, creamy, chewy Monday. It is an amazing week. So many things coming up for you in the not too distant future. So excited for those things. So be on the lookout for them. Again, like, subscribe, comment, share, and that link that Adam posted to the new YouTube channel. Start watching from over there, because the Grow Giver YouTube channel is not going to go away, but we're eventually going to stop broadcasting the Growing Your Mindset to that channel.
For
So
simplicity.
yeah, just to keep things, just because we want to niche the mindset community that we're building down a little bit. We want to, focus so that we can focus to help a broader group of people. So we don't just want to focus on the entrepreneurs, although we love our entrepreneurs, we're entrepreneurs, but we want to focus on anybody who wants help growing their mindset, anybody who wants to spend time in the gym. And we don't want people to feel like, oh, I have to belong to this niche, like Sub 2, or that niche, like the Growing Your Mindset community. But really, you could be anywhere in your life, an athlete, a non-athlete, in the military, not in the military.
The great thing, it all crosses over, right? All
Right,
this mindset
right.
stuff crosses over for sure.
Well, like Brian pointed out, really anything can go to mindset. So
Let's go.
let's go. Yeah. So without any further ado, we'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.